Hey YouTubers, got another video review for you today. This one is from Banks. This is their cold air intake, their Ram Air cold air intake, and this is for the Jeep Gladiator and the Wrangler. So stay tuned, I'm going to show you how to install it. We're going to do some tests going down the road and just see how it sounds and see if I can feel any difference in power. So I'm not going to bore you guys with an unboxing and unwrapping all this stuff, but I went ahead and took it out of the package. I'm just going to tell you about it. You'll notice that you've got what they call their big ass filter, and no joke, this thing is freaking huge. We'll touch more on that here in a minute. Then you've got your intake tube, and you can see that it's pretty beefy. I've noticed it's a lot bigger in diameter than the stock one, and even right there where it goes into the throttle body, the stock one has a little bit of a restriction right in there, where this one's nice and big. And then it comes with your different hose clamps, your hardware. Then it comes with like a little plexiglass viewing window for the box. And as far as all the paperwork and everything, it's in the bag. For the instructions, what you do is you scan this area right here, and then you can pull it up on your phone, and then it gives you all the instructions. As you can see right there, it tells you it's for a 2018 to 2021 Jeep JL Wrangler with the 3.6 liter gas engine. This is not for the diesel. And also the 20 to 21 Jeep Gladiator. And you can see everything's all in color and gives you a list of everything that you're going to need, all the tools and step-by-step instructions. So stay tuned, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. All right guys, so next I'm going to remove these two little push-in clips, and I've just got a little trim tool. If you don't have one of these, you can pick them up at Harbor Freight, or you can use a screwdriver or whatever, and you just slide it up underneath there, and you just kind of pull it back and lever them out, and you've already got them pretty much pulled up out of there. And then I just take a pair of needle nose and pull them up. To remove this IAT sensor, the first thing that you want to do is take your little trim tool or just a little flat screwdriver and stick it in behind this lock. And the reason you want to do that is because that little lock that's sticking out the side of the sensor right here, there's a little bump there at the bottom that prevents it from just turning. So like I said, just slide that little trim tool behind it or a little screwdriver, and then you want to turn counterclockwise. Once you twist it, then it goes over that bump. Now you can go ahead and twist it and unlock it. All right, now you can see that little arm that's sticking out is below the bump right there, and then you just want to kind of work it out. Very simple. And you want to take and put this over to the side. Try not to get it dirty or anything, because you will be reinstalling this into the new intake tube. So I had like a little Ziploc bag that come in the packing for the cold air intake, so I'm just going to stick it in that baggie so it stays nice and clean. And then next, what you want to do is take you a 10mm socket and go ahead and disconnect these bolts right here in front. You got one on each side there. All right, for your next step, you're going to remove this crankcase tube, and the way that you do that is there's a little tab right there that you just mash in, and you can see that it's flexing when I push it with my index finger, and you just push it in and pull out. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and remove this hose clamp. It's an 8mm, and you'll remove it from the throttle body. Just remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Then once you loosen it up, then jump over here to this side, and you have a 10mm right in there, and go ahead and disconnect it. So now you should have everything disconnected. You can see that I've got the intake tube there disconnected from the radiator support here, and got it disconnected from the throttle body. Got the crankcase tube disconnected, the intake air temperature sensor or IAT sensor disconnected. I've got the two Christmas trees disconnected, the clips, And then I've got this 10mm bolt here holding it down, all disconnected. So you just want to kind of grab here, pull it out away from the throttle body, and then you've got two grommets down here in the bottom on the very bottom of the intake, and you're going to have to kind of give it a little bit of oomph when you pull up on it so it snaps out of those grommets. There we go. There's one more clip that I forgot. It's right here on the very back. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I'm just going to pop that out of there. All right, you guys can see that there was just another Christmas tree type clip that's hooked into this little eyelet right back in there. But once you disconnect it, then you can see the whole intake tube and air box just comes all out as one piece. You don't have to separate them here in the middle. So one thing I noticed, you know, with this stock intake air tube here, as you can see that it's flat. It's flat here on the bottom, and you know, it is not a round tube at all. I mean, it's oval shaped, and you can see, I mean, it's just flat. And so, you know, the whole name of the game for exhaust, intake, and everything is, you know, you want to try to get all the restrictions out so you can get better flow. Well, if you look at it right here on the Banks tube, it's round, and it's a lot bigger than the stock one. So we'll turn them, you can put them side by side, and you can't tell me that they can't make a difference, you know, just by, you know, having such a big tube. I mean, it's obvious that it's going to flow better just from the tube size alone, not even, you know, the difference in the size of the filter. The tube is going to be less restrictive. Another thing, I showed you that this side here is round instead of flat, but look right here at this side where it goes into the air box to connect to the filter. This one here is round finally, where the Banks one is oval shaped, but look how much bigger it is in diameter compared to the stock one. I mean, that is ridiculous. So, you know, you're going to be able to suck in more air. It's going to be able to pull more air in, and you know, that's how they get so much better flow, is through this tube, through the big filter that they have. I mean, if you compare them, I mean, look at the Banks filter. It's as big as the air box. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked, got a little nerdy with the cold air intake, but back to the installation. What you want to do is flip the stock air box over, and you'll notice that there's two little pegs right here. They're little plastic pegs, and they have grommets on them. And you just pull those grommets off, just like that, and you just pull up on them and twist them, and they come off really easy. In fact, this whole install has been very easy. And then you want to take those grommets, and if you look right down in here, you'll see that there's a hole right there, and then there's a hole right in there. And you just want to take and push those grommets back in the hole. And then if you notice right here, this is where this tube right here goes up into your radiator, in front of, like, by your radiator or whatever. And what that does is it sucks in cold air, and that way when you're going down the road, you know, cold air is being sucked in and it comes out right here. And so, you know, that's where you're getting some of that cold fresh air. You know, cold air is more dense, so that's what that's for. It's just an air tube. For the next part of the installation, you're going to take these little metal pegs that Banks supplies you, and you're going to take the Banks air box, and you're going to push these pegs through these holes right here. You just push them in like that. Very simple. Do the same for the other one. Okay, and then once you get them both pushed through there, then there is a retaining clip that you put on. I call them little Mickey Mouse clips. Some people call them E-clips, whatever you want to call them. They just slide into the little groove right there on that peg, and I just used my thumb to push it up on there. You might have to use a pair of pliers or something, but I just slide them up there like that. I don't know if you can see that, and then I just push them in with my thumb, and they lock in place in that groove. So now those pegs can't be pushed out. You know, they're going to stay in place. So next, what you want to do is take the big ass filter. It's huge, and it has a little arrow right there, and that little arrow should be pointing down when you slide it into the box. And then I'm going to show you how to install it on the Jeep. But first, I want to show you again. This is just ridiculous. If you put the stock air box next to this one, look at how big that opening is compared to the stock one. I mean, that one might be 2.5, maybe 3 inches. This one here, I can put both my fists in there. I mean, that's just crazy. So, you know, it should flow a lot better. Then next, what you want to do is you're going to reinstall this box into the factory location. You're going to slide these metal pegs down into those grommets. Take the Banks air tube, and you've got a packet of hardware, and there's a grommet, and you're going to put it into that hole right there. So what you want to do is just kind of squeeze it and then work it in there with your thumb. Now sometimes these can be a real pain in the butt, but that one actually went in there quite nice, and it fits in there real tight. So that was fairly easy compared to some of the ones that I've done. All right, so I thought I would be able to slide the intake tube with the filter down into the air box with the air box installed. I was wrong. You have to pull this out, go ahead and slide this filter down into the air box, and it's kind of just locks itself in place, and now you can go ahead and install it. And like again, you want to make sure that this piece right here don't get damaged, and you want to make sure that it snaps down in the bottom there in those little pegs. All right guys, now the installation is almost done. I went ahead and got the tube secured to the throttle body there, and I've got the little coupler right there attached to the intake tube, and got the clamps tightened down. The IAT, you just wanted it like the 9 o'clock position with this little locking tab over to the side, just like it would have been from the factory. There's an O-ring in there, so, and you know, it just pushes into that grommet, and it really just kind of locks in place with like a friction fit. Now you can see with this new tube that it opens the engine bay up quite a bit. All this area is open right here, where before, you know, that old intake just covered it up. It looks a lot cleaner. I went ahead and installed this tube here for the crankcase into the intake tube. I went ahead and tightened up this clamp going onto the intake tube and around the filter, and then right here I went ahead and installed the bolt. Now as far as the 2 bolts here in the front, it doesn't have those. It doesn't connect to the intake tube like the original one did, so I'm just gonna put those bolts aside in case I ever need them. Now the final step is to take this little plexiglass piece and just set it right in there, and then they supply you with some blue thread locker to put on the little Phillips head bolts. And then once you put thread locker on them, then we should be ready to start it. All right guys, well, it is all done, and I gotta say, it was a very easy install. Everything's very easy to get to here on the front of the Gladiator, and your Wranglers too. It's all the same, and I gotta say, it looks a hell of a lot better. Very, very impressed with every bit of the parts that come with this. I mean, it all fit together nice, and it looks great. So I'm gonna have her start it for the first time, and I'll go ahead and tell you, we have not started it. You can see it's not hot. I'm sitting there touching the alternator, and so this is the first time. This is not some rigged video, so go ahead, start it up. And you know, just from startup, you really can't hear it, you know. I mean, sounds pretty much like it did stock. So I'm gonna have to rev it up a little bit. Rev it up just a little. Yeah, it sounds like it's a little bit better than it was stock, but it's still not very loud. So we're gonna take this thing down the road and see how it does. All right, guys. Well, let's test it out. I'll shut up so you can hear it. Now, I gotta say, it sounds a hell of a lot better. Now, when you first put it on and you take it out for your first initial spin, like when you first crank it up, you can't really hear it. When I first started it up, I really didn't notice a whole lot. It was just maybe a hair louder when you cranked it up. But then when you go to take off and you give it some gas, you can immediately feel or hear the sound. As far as the power and stuff, you know, I haven't really revved it up and tried to gun it, and you know, I'm not looking for, you know, to hit top speed in this thing. I just want a little increased sound so it sounds better. You know, it's a Jeep and you have the windows rolled down, the doors off this thing, or the top off, or whatever. You want to be able to hear a better sound, because there's just no sound really from these things. Mostly all that you hear is just tire whining. But now that we've replaced the cold air intake, when you do give it throttle, it does have a nice growl to it. I mean, it sounds good. Once you give it some nice throttle, it's got that low end, real deep grunt to it. And you know, I'm not trying to say, hey, this thing's a big block Chevy now. It's not super fast. You know, these vehicles, none of the 3.6 liters are fast. I mean, I've heard a few YouTubers say that they were fast, but you know, if you actually drive something day to day like I do, that's got some balls to it. Yeah, I've got a GMC Sierra with a 6.2 liter in it. So the Gladiator to me is not fast. It feels like a slug. But you know, that's one reason why I wanted to do this upgrade to it, because you know, if you add, you know, heavy bumpers to it, you know, some of those steel bumpers are several hundred pounds. You add a winch to it, you know, you're another 50-100 pounds. You add all these accessories and all this stuff to it, you're going to add more weight. You know, if you're a big guy like me having to pull all this weight, you know, then you know, a few extra horsepower is not going to hurt this thing at all. And so that's what I want to do, is just pep it up. Now, how much horsepower is it going to make? Not sure. It's probably going to make under 10 horsepower, but you know, 5-10 horsepower, that's quite a bit on an engine this small. It's just a 3.6 liter. Gotta say, it sounds better. You can tell that it's getting better flow. You can just tell. I mean, you can look at it and tell that the intake tube is a lot bigger. You know, what can I say? You know, it's not like there's going to be 100 more horsepower, but does it sound good? Hell yeah. It sounds a lot better than it does stock. Does it feel a little bit peppier? I think so. It's hard to really say, you know, but I know that they dyno test this stuff, and you know, it is proven performance. All right, now we're fixing to pull off with the windows rolled down so you guys can hear it. So I'm going to try to give it some RPMs. Listen. So one thing that I will say is, like, at normal cruising, you're not really going to notice it, because it's not like it's going to be annoying. I don't really, you know, if I'm not mashing the throttle, I really don't feel it or hear it. You know, just a real slight growl. You know, but once you give it some gas, you will definitely hear it. So I do like that aspect. It makes it sound more like a Jeep. It sounds more like a truck, you know, instead of being so quiet. So I do like that aspect. Now I will say there was no check engine lights that come on whenever I turned it back on, plugged everything up. There was no check engine lights. Don't have to worry about none of that mess. Now I'm on the Banks website, and you can see when you do a search for the Jeep Gladiator, I've punched in 2021 Jeep Gladiator with the 3.6 liter gas engine. The first one that pops up is the oiled filter. Now the one that I got is not the oiled filter. I decided to get the dry filter right there, and you can see it's the big ass dry filter. And the reason that I chose it is because, you know, I'm bad about oiling them. I didn't want to put too much or put too little, and so I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the dry one, and that way I don't ever have to buy oil or whatever. And so that's why I chose this one. You can see that it says it outflows the stock air box by 82% to increase power and miles per gallon. So it's pretty crazy. You can click on details right there, and let's see here. There's a picture of the cold air intake. It's $409. And it got looked like 45 5-star reviews, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed. Now, one thing I do like with the Banks is these guys are really good about testing their stuff. And you can see right here, there's the Banks filter compared to an AFE and S&B. And I mean, look how much bigger the filter is. So, you know, the bigger the filter, the more surface area, the more dirt and stuff that it can hold. And you can go between longer periods of time without having to clean it compared to some of the smaller filters that would get clogged up faster. So, you know, I like how they compare against some of the other competitors' filters. So that's pretty impressive. They don't mind calling other people out. So that's pretty cool. Then right here in the description, it also says the Ram Air cold air intake adds a tested best-in-class airflow of 782 CFM. So that's how much it flows, and then that's a gain of 82% over stock and a 21.6% over their closest competitor. The system produces lower temperature at higher pressure, providing air density right at the throttle inlet. So everybody knows that colder air is more dense, and more dense air produces power. So, you know, so if you read right in there, as a result, the Banks Ram Air system boasts a 38% air density improvement compared to the stock intake, two times the increase of its closest competitor. So, you know, it's pretty impressive. They do all their testing and all that, and, you know, also, again, you know, if you're in some of the other states, you know, it's 50 state legal and all that. Don't have to worry about it. And, you know, there's no dreaded drone whenever you're riding down the road. You don't have like an annoying sound coming from the intake. That's one thing that I have noticed. The only time, like I said, the only time you really hear it's whenever you go to get on it. So let's take it for a spin one more time, let you guys hear it, and stay tuned. So here we go. It sounds a lot better. I'm very impressed with it. Well worth the money. So I don't know as far as miles per gallon, don't know as far as power, but I gotta say, sounds better. It feels a little more peppier, you know. Might just be me, but feels like that it has a little more low end pep to it. So anyways, I definitely give it 2 thumbs up, and that's probably the best cold air intake out there in my opinion. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel,